Hi, and welcome back to another week of Sunday School. Last week you were learning about plants in Susa, and this week we'll be talking about pets in Susa. So, we're in ancient Persia, and we hear about Susa in the book of Esther. We also hear about it in the book of Daniel and also Nehemiah, but our focus is going to be Esther. So, 3 facts for you. Did you know that we were talking about pets and animals and the things that were regarded there in ancient Persia? Doves were highly regarded in Persian culture, and they were romantic symbols. So the sailors would use doves as messengers to send at sea between their sweethearts, to send messages back and forth, obviously because they didn't have telephones or email then. So doves were used. Also, peacocks were a symbol of Persian monarchy, kings and queens and royalty. And historians found that the Persian recipes, they used to do barbecued and roasted peacock, which I found interesting. I don't know if I'd eat that myself. Third, did you know fact, that the falcon was a very popular pet back in ancient Persian times, and historically theories have gone back and found that the practice of falconry was originated from Persia. And later on for your homework, you'll be finding out why we think that was a good pet then. So, why is this information important for us to understand, and what do you need to know? So, in ancient Persia, they were fascinated by animals and mythical creatures, and they worshipped them. This is what they put their trust in, this is what they put their hope in animals and pets there. Now, when I spoke earlier, I said we're going to look at the book of Esther. Now, Esther was a Jew, and she was made queen by the king at that time, and Mordecai was her uncle. And they had a man called Haman, and Haman wanted to wipe out the Jews. Now, Mordecai told Esther that she needs to confess that she's a Jew and that God was going to use her mightily in this time. But at this point, it's important to know that Esther and Mordecai's views were very different from those who lived in Persia at that time. They believed in God, and they trusted God, and they trusted God's word. And the other people that lived in Persia at this time, they trusted in, as I said earlier, animals. They idolized animals, they worshipped the animals of that time. So if you think, you can imagine, they were different, their beliefs were different from those, and they would have stuck out amongst a lot of people. And if we think how we feel a bit different from someone. We want to feel a part of something, but they weren't afraid of that. Their views were different, but they were able to stand strong with God and knowing God's word and what he had said to them, and stand firm on that and believe it. And they were comforted by that and knowing that. And that's really important for us. So what is God trying to tell us through the story? Now, from reading the book of Esther, God is always at work. Now, he's not mentioned in the book of Esther at all. Not even once, not even half of once, not at all. But as we read the story and as we go through the story, we see God's hand and we see God at work in every single place, in everything that's happened. He had a plan from the very beginning, and it was followed through. And Esther and Mordecai were used by God in that plan, and God was able to be glorified through it. The same way that God has a plan for you, your life, everything you're doing, God has a plan for you, and he will use you as long as we're obedient to him and follow his word. So what can we learn from all of this? We can learn that obedience to God and his word are very important. Even though we may be around people and around practices that are not of God, we can follow God and we can trust God and trust his word. Cultures may change and times may change, but God's word will stand the test of time. So if we look back at what the Persians believed, that is no longer a practice because it was ancient, but God's word is still very true, and God's word can be trusted. And what else can we learn from this? We can rely on God. when we step out from the crowd and live a different way from the world, God will always be with us. And we see this in the book of Esther. Esther was a Jew, but God saved her, and God also saved the Jews as well. So what would we like you to do for homework this week? Now, I would like you to look up the falcon. I would like you to think about what the falcon's strengths are, and also why would it have been a good pet? I would also like you to look up the water bird in the ancient Persian culture. And I would like you to think about how those beliefs differ from Christianity. Now, earlier I said that practices will change and times will change, but God's word will remain the same. So see how you can link that. I would like you to read Esther chapter 8, and it's about Esther saving the Jews. And then when you fill out your worksheet, I want you to tell me what the outcome for Esther was as a result of her obedience to God and how God was glorified. I hope you've had a fantastic time this week. I'm excited to see all the things you've learnt. Bye.